did. Although our clients, we advise them not to do anything. But second, because of where the market is, I actually think there's opportunities. And so I'll talk about why if you're reluctant to buy now, you shouldn't be reluctant. So hopefully that's going to give you some optimism. So before I start, I just want to explain a little bit about my company because we have some folks here from Fundstrat. Yes, if you guys can just stand up. That's Mark Newton, who's speaking at 1 o'clock. He's our head of technical strategy and the guy I use for all the tactical calls. And then there's Jill and Alexa, who are on our communications team, and we have a booth over there. But if you're a self-directed investor, we have FS Insight if you're interested in following markets. But if you want to just let us make the investment decisions for you, we have an ETF called Granny Shots, ticker GRNY. And they asked me to put this QR code if you want a free trial to the service. But I'll put it up at the end. Okay, so April 2nd was a Black Swan event. And it's not the Black Swan movie premiere, but you guys to make a personal assessment because you aren't alone. A lot of people, when the market was falling, hedge funds, long-only managers, they went to cash. I've done so many Zooms in the past 2 weeks about fund managers that have probably 50% of the exposure they want to cyclical stocks, or even 0%. So they are panicked and they're hoping for a pullback so that they can re-risk. So here's 5 reasons why I think investors are still off sides. And that's why you've noticed that the stock market kind of has a bid every day because people are still off sides. So let me explain. The first is a lot of people said there was going to be a recession. And in fact, JP Morgan was one of the first. They said they raised the odds of a recession to 60%. But here's the thing. If you want to know who's the best at predicting a recession, I would say the single best economist is the high yield market. And this is the high yield market. And as you can see, it did soar. This is the spread to treasuries to 460 basis points wide. Yes. The stock market looks through that. That happens with government shutdowns. It doesn't really cripple the economy. Yet hedge funds were shorting cyclicals this entire time. So again, your people are looking at yesterday's newspaper and trading on it. The third is the VIX surged, but when the VIX surges, it forces everybody to liquidate. Okay, so the top chart here is the VIX, and the bottom is speculative longs on futures. Every time the VIX spikes, funds are forced to de-risk. Okay, but look what happens after the VIX goes down. They're forced to add risk. So here's the thing. In the midst of the VIX 60, our FSI clients got this message. You buy stocks when the VIX is over 50, and it's confirmed when the VIX is less than 30. Just remember that. And the next time the VIX explodes to 60, it's a gift. The second is you have to start looking at 2026. We're in the middle of 2025. The stock market always looks 6 to 12 months ahead. So you want to think about 2026 right now. And next year, we have tax cuts. We have a lot of deregulation in the pipeline. And we have more Fed cuts in 2026. Like the Fed's not cutting now, but they're going to cut next year. And companies are benefiting from freer trade. These tariff deals are allowing U.S. companies to have better access to other markets. That's big upside. So if you ask me, I think there's a lot of earnings upside for next year. And a second thing to keep in mind is that companies are battle tested now. This is what you have to remember. Investors are shockingly cautious still. And for instance, if I could see a show of hands, before I spoke, could you raise your hands if you are cautious or bearish right now? Okay. And then how many of you are bullish now? All right. You're the smart ones. And I think it's Really because I think PEs should be going up. So like there's people who are telling you, oh, US exceptionalism over the PE should be contracting. I think the multiple of the market should be increasing from here. And don't forget, everyone told you there was not a Trump put. There is a White House put on the stock market. And remember, everyone's going to tell you there's no Fed put. There is a Fed put. You have a Fed put and a Trump put, which is why I think there isn't the same downside on stocks that people expect. Well, it's completely reset. If you're receiving our research, we talk about the AAII sentiment has gotten so bearish, it's associated with the bear market. So we've already reset expectations to what you expect to see at the start of a bull market. And we have a list of washed out stocks if you're trying to do this individual names, like Coinbase. Well, see, these stocks have already moved, but we had identified these a few weeks ago. You know, Coinbase, Tesla, Robinhood, Supermicro, MicroStrategy. But you know what? Each one of these is moving on their own time. So I don't think it's too late to buy any of these. And these are the SMID cap washed out stocks as well. And they have a similar profile that we've been identifying. Theme. So a stock has to have two drivers of its long-term value generation. And so the more times it appears in a theme, the stronger the granny shot is. So Google, Meta, Apple, Caterpillar, Garmin, NVIDIA, and Palantir are examples of the strongest granny shots we have. And we just added in our rebalance Robinhood, Monster Beverage, GE, KLA Tencor, and FICO. And then maybe on a final note, before I take questions, because I think I only have 5 minutes for questions. This Black Swan of 2025 is a reminder, try not to time the market with most of your money, okay? And here's the math I want to give you. Since 1928, the S&P returned 8% a year. But if you missed the 10 best days of every year since 1928, and since 2019, and for the 6 years through 2024, it had outperformed the S&P every year for those 6 years. That's why we launched the Granny Shots ETF. So it's no longer in the research business, it's in the asset management business. However, we've created the SMID Granny Shots research list. And that actually has been available to our subscribers, and it's actually doing better than Granny Shots. And Mark and I do a monthly webinar. Next week, Thursday, is our next one, where we go through the SMID Granny Shots, the best ideas and the worst within that list. But we can't talk about future products within Fundstrat Capital, but I would say that there's a lot of people, including our clients, that want us to do the SMID Granny as an ETF, just because it's very tax efficient. You know, with Granny Shots, equal weight every stock in Granny Shots, and we equal weight it and rebalance every quarter. And yet it's still been outperforming. The thing to keep in mind is we actually ran a simulation if we didn't reweight it, because NVIDIA has been a Granny Shots stock list since 2019 when it was like $20. Believe it or not, the performance differential is negligible. It has not made a difference that we've rebalanced to equal weight every quarter. It's like cumulatively 200 basis points. I mean, I was pretty shocked, but it didn't make a difference.
Hi, Tom. Big fan of you. So you've been covering BTC for a quite long time, and I love your narrative. I have this question around BTC cycles. So they've been around halvings, but since the reward is diminishing itself, what about the narrative? There is different kind of capital right now in BTC, and what if those...
Of all, and I heard this stat yesterday from Bitwise, and it's very accurate. 95% of all the Bitcoin has been mined. There's only 5% left in the supply. That's very scarce. Like gold is still unlimited in its supply. Yet the US government wants to buy 5%. Institutions this year bought more than 5% of Bitcoin, and they probably want to buy 15%. MicroStrategy wants to buy 5% of Bitcoin. Another sovereign government probably will buy 5%. If you total this up, there's 40% non-retail demand.
Like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Support the channel by liking this video, subscribing, and enabling post notifications for more content on crypto and digital assets. Check out our other videos and share your thoughts in the comments below. Your engagement helps with the YouTube algorithm and keeps the content coming. Thanks for your support. Enjoy the video.